What's up, guys, and welcome back to my channel. What's next for Charles Oliveira following his big win at UFC Rio? When it was announced that Oliveira would be competing on this card, many people expressed concerns about how he would look coming back after suffering a brutal knockout loss to Ilya in June. But not only did Oliveira return, he delivered a statement performance and added even more records to his legendary resume. In the headliner, he faced noted grappler Mateusz Gamrot, who had confidently said in the build-up that he would welcome a ground fight with Oliveira. Once the cage door closed, Gamrot went for the takedown early, getting Oliveira to the mat not long into the fight. But what happened next was vintage Oliveira. From the bottom, he immediately put Gamrot on the defensive, threatening with a nasty guard and slick submission attempts that forced the Polish fighter to focus purely on surviving. Gamrot fought hard through several dangerous positions, but in round 2, everything changed. This time it was Oliveira who scored the takedown, and as soon as the fight hit the mat, Gamrot was in serious trouble. Oliveira advanced his position with precision, slowly tightening the noose. Moments later, he locked in a fight-ending choke that forced Gamrot to tap. The crowd inside the arena erupted as the former lightweight champion secured another spectacular finish. With this win, Oliveira extended his record for the most submissions in UFC history to 17 and most finishes to 21, continuing to prove why he's considered one of the most dangerous fighters on the roster. This performance was especially impressive given the circumstances. Oliveira was coming off a devastating loss to Ilya, and many people were unsure whether returning to action so soon was the right move. But he silenced all the doubts with a flawless display of skill and composure. He showed he still has the fire, the hunger, and the championship mindset. In his post-fight interview, Oliveira made it clear what he wants next. Rather than calling for an immediate title shot, which isn't realistic after his recent loss, he set his sights on a massive fight with the BMF champion Max. It's the kind of matchup that makes sense for both men, offering Oliveira a chance to stay in the spotlight while working his way back toward the top of the lightweight division. Whether the UFC books it next or not, Oliveira just reminded the world that he's still a major problem for anyone at 155 pounds. And before we continue, make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe to help support the channel. Moving on to another news, Alex Pereira has officially confirmed that he broke his foot during his dominant performance at UFC 320, and also talked about his desire to return at the UFC White House card. After making quick work of Magomed Ankalaev, Pereira said he was concerned about the state of his foot. Now the light heavyweight champion has revealed that those concerns were real. During a recent Q&A with fans ahead of the UFC card in Rio, Pereira explained, "I did an X-ray in Las Vegas and an MRI here, and we have a fracture on my foot. But I still don't know what will happen or how long it will take for me to recover. I think it's good to focus on this White House. It's something that interests me. I think I'll focus on this." With the injury and his comments, it sounds like we may not see Pereira back in action until June. The UFC White House card is planned for June 14th, which would mean a 9-month layoff for the feared striker. It's a long wait for fans who are eager to see him back inside the octagon, but Pereira seems set on making his comeback on one of the biggest stages the UFC has ever planned. He was also asked about the possibility of facing Jon Jones at that event. Pereira responded, "This is MMA. Those who know my work know that I always say in my interviews, you either win or lose, but I'll do my best and prepare myself well to come out with the victory." A showdown between Pereira and Jones would be one of the biggest fights the UFC could book. And with the White House card shaping up to be massive, it's clear why this idea is gaining momentum. Pereira also addressed Ankalaev's camp releasing footage claiming he broke his ribs 3 weeks before their fight. Pereira made it clear he wasn't buying into any excuses. "I can't know, but if it was already injured, it hurt even more with the elbows. You can't give excuses. I had 1,000 excuses to say, but waited to say when we were about to fight again. They're already giving away excuses to maybe take away my merits. I don't know," he said. There's also been plenty of talk about Khamzat calling out Pereira after UFC 320. When asked about that call-out, Beneil Dariush gave his thoughts. He said he'd like to see Pereira get a big fight, preferably against Jon Jones, and ride off into the sunset with a huge paycheck. But when pressed on a potential matchup between Khamzat and Pereira, he admitted, "Absolutely, I would favor Khamzat against Pereira. The way Khamzat wrestles is very different from the way Ankalaev wrestles. Ankalaev seems to employ almost a Greco style, more body locks. He doesn't commit so much. Khamzat completely commits, completely turns the corner. He's able to get on your back. he's able to do so much more. Ankalaev doesn't have that kind of wrestling. While Pereira recovers from his injury, the speculation about his next opponent continues to grow. Whether it's Jones, Khamzat, or someone else entirely, his return is already one of the most anticipated comebacks of 2025. Moving on to another news, Jiri Prochazka is clearly not happy with Magomed Ankalaev. After his jaw-dropping performance at UFC 320, Jiri has his sights set on another showdown with Alex Pereira, but it's becoming clear there's also unfinished business with Ankalaev. Jiri stayed in the title picture by storming back to finish Khalil Roundtree Jr. in the third round. Not long after that, Alex Pereira reclaimed the light heavyweight title in dominant fashion, stopping Ankalaev quickly and sending a strong message to the entire division. Cameras even captured Jiri getting emotional after seeing Pereira's victory, and since then, he's made it clear that he wants another shot at the belt. But it's not just the title that's motivating him. In several interviews, Jiri expressed that he's not a fan of Ankalaev because of comments made on social media. He said Ankalaev wrote things about him on Twitter, things that made their way through the MMA world. But when they met face-to-face, Ankalaev acted like nothing ever happened, as if there was no bad blood between them. That moment didn't sit well with Jiri. He said he couldn't understand how someone could write all those things online and then pretend everything was fine in person. To him, it felt fake, and that left a bad taste. Jiri believes those tweets may not have come directly from Ankalaev himself, but from someone else behind the scenes. Still, he insists that Ankalaev must understand there's a responsibility attached to every word put out there. Once something is said, it carries weight, and in Jiri's eyes, you have to stand by it. That's why the tension between these two continues to build. With both fighters sitting near the top of the division, there's a real possibility the UFC could decide to book this fight next. It would be a clash between two former champions with unfinished business and a personal edge that fans love to see. Even if neither man is officially calling for the fight at the moment, the story and the emotions are already there, setting the stage for a potentially explosive matchup down the line. Moving on to another news, after his impressive win, Deiveson Figueiredo made it clear that he wants to fight the reigning bantamweight king, Merab. It's a bold call-out, especially considering Figueiredo was coming off back-to-back losses to Peter Yan and Corey Sandhagen. On paper, it seems unlikely the UFC will grant him that title shot immediately, but he remains one of the few top-ranked bantamweights Merab hasn't faced yet. Shortly after the fight, Merab took to social media to send Figueiredo a message. He wrote, "Congratulations, Deiveson Figueiredo. Great performance against a top opponent. I'm waiting for you." Figueiredo wasted no time in responding to the call-out, showing respect for Merab and confirming he's ready to step into the octagon for that matchup. The timing of this potential fight makes things interesting in the bantamweight division. Merab is on a dominant run, beating almost everyone in the top 10, while Figueiredo has the name value and former champion status to make the bout appealing. Even Bisping has said this is a fight he'd love to see. If the UFC decides to move forward with it, this could be a massive clash for the division. Moving on to another news, Max Holloway has officially reacted to Charles Oliveira's call-out following UFC Rio. Not long after Oliveira made it clear that he wants to face the BMF champion next, Holloway went live to share his thoughts. He said it would be a fun fight and even teased the possibility of it taking place at the highly talked-about UFC White House event. Holloway seemed excited about the matchup, acknowledging that fans were already buzzing about it. While he didn't make any promises, his reaction definitely gave everyone hope that this fight could happen sooner rather than later. During the live session, Holloway also gave an update on his hand injury. He explained that it's been getting better and he's waiting to get cleared for contact work. "I know, bro, I know. I know already. I see the chat. We know, bro. We hear, bro. We heard the call out. Tell him," Holloway said, laughing and interacting with fans. He added that only time will tell how things play out, but admitted the wait could be long if the fight does end up being booked for the White House card. Even though it might take time, Holloway made it clear that the idea excites him. He talked about the history between himself and Oliveira, saying that this matchup has been floating around for years. "It'll be a fun one," Holloway said. "Me and him have a history." He's blaming it on some type of injury. "I guess we get to figure it out now." The BMF champion made it sound like the timing is finally right for the two to settle unfinished business inside the octagon. Holloway went on to talk more about his recovery process. He admitted his hand isn't fully healed yet, but it's improving steadily. He hasn't returned to full grappling or sparring, but he's been focusing on strength and conditioning to stay in shape. "We'll be back sooner than later," Holloway said confidently. With Oliveira making the call out and Holloway showing interest, this fight has the kind of energy that could headline a massive event and deliver fireworks for the fans. Moving on to another news, Charles Oliveira has responded to Max Holloway's recent comments. During the post-fight press conference, Oliveira made it clear that he's ready to face Holloway anywhere, anytime. He said, "It can be at his house. If it's not in Brazil, it can be anywhere in the world. I don't think the UFC will do an event in Hawaii. I don't want to wait for the White House. March is perfect. It's a perfect fight." His response shows how serious he is about making this matchup happen without any unnecessary delays. Oliveira has momentum on his side after his dominant win at UFC Rio, and he's not looking to sit out for too long. While Holloway hinted that the fight could be targeted for the White House event, Oliveira made it clear that waiting that long isn't part of his plan. He wants to keep the energy going and step back into the octagon as early as March. Both fighters seem open to the idea, and the buzz around this potential clash is already heating up. It's the kind of matchup that could deliver a classic and keep the fans on the edge of their seats. Moving on to another news, UFC 323's main event may have just been leaked during a live broadcast, and the MMA world is buzzing about it. Right after Michael Aswell secured his win over Lucas Almeida, things took an unexpected turn during his post-fight interview. While talking to the crowd and the cameras, Michael accidentally revealed that Alexandre Pantoja will be fighting his, quote, best friend, Joshua Van, at UFC 323 this December. According to him, the fight is already announced, but in reality, it hasn't been made official by the promotion yet. It seems like Van may have shared the news privately with people close to him, and Michael probably let it slip without realizing the weight of what he just said. He was clearly excited and mentioned he wants to be on that same card. But that one comment immediately set off a firestorm online. MMA fans jumped on X and started reacting to the potential leak. One fan wrote, "Definitely not getting on that card now." Another added, "Dana, bring Joshua Van out here to face off with the champ." Someone else chimed in, "Dana must be punching the air right now." The general feeling among fans is that Van trusted Michael with the news, but Michael might have made a huge mistake by blurting it out. Some even joked about how Van probably said, "I'll tell you my fight date, but you gotta promise not to tell anyone." And well, that didn't work out too well. If the leak turns out to be real, it means we could be getting Alexandre Pantoja versus Joshua Van as the UFC 323 main event, which is a massive flyweight matchup. At the same time, it's unclear how the UFC will respond to this situation. Leaks like this can sometimes frustrate the promotion, especially if they had planned a big official announcement. But in some cases, they might use it to gauge fan interest before locking everything in. One way or another, the buzz around this potential main event is already huge. Moving on to another news, Bisping has shared his thoughts on what could be one of the most exciting potential fights in the UFC right now. He wants to see Alexander Volkanovski face Merab inside the octagon. While it remains to be seen who Volkanovski and Merab will fight next, Bisping believes a champion versus champion clash would be something special. Merab is coming off a dominant decision victory over Corey Sandhagen to defend his bantamweight crown, while Volkanovski reclaimed the featherweight belt in April with a strong decision. Win over Diego Lopez. There's been talk about Merab facing Peter Yan and Alex potentially defending against the likes of Lerone Murphy or Movsar Evloev, but nothing has been officially booked yet. During a recent video on his YouTube channel, Bisping said, "If everyone's going to jump around weight classes, if Khamzat is going to fight Alex Pereira, if Pereira is going to fight John Jones or Tom Aspinall, Conor can do it without defending a belt. Islam Makhachev wants to go up. Ilya wants to go up. Why can't Merab go up when he's beaten everyone in the top 10? He's lapping the division. Tell me that you don't want to see a fight between Alexander Volkanovski and Merab. That would be incredible. I would absolutely love to see that fight." It's a compelling idea, though at the moment, Merab doesn't seem to have any plans to move up to 145 pounds. Meanwhile, the featherweight division has its own title picture shaping up. Daniel Cormier recently shared his thoughts on how things could play out. On a recent episode of Good Guy, Bad Guy, he said, "The title shot for me is Volk versus Lerone Murphy. Then I want to do Lopez versus Yair Rodriguez." Cormier reminded fans that there's real history between Lopez and Rodriguez. He explained, "Do you remember when Lopez and Rodriguez were fighting when they weren't supposed to fight each other? They were fighting at press conferences and stuff. It's so personal between these two that they could fight, and people would pay attention because of the history. But it could also matter because a win could potentially make them the #1 contender. Cormier also talked about Movsar Evloev's path to a title shot. He said, "Here's the problem with Movsar. He's not known. I would do Movsar versus Youssef Zalal. Then you'll say you left out #5, Aljo Sterling. I would do Movsar versus Zalal because Zalal is a guy who's on that big run. If he beats Movsar, he really puts himself in place. But if Movsar beats him, let's just move him into the title fight. You can't deny a guy that's won that many times. What do I do with Aljo? He sits as that backup fighter." While nothing is official yet, there are several intriguing matchups being discussed at both featherweight and bantamweight. A super fight between Volkanovski and Merab would be a blockbuster event if it ever gets booked. But even if it doesn't happen right away, the title picture in both divisions looks loaded with exciting possibilities.